Hi, Amelia.
Hi, Kate.
You are a fantastic musician and songwriter and community advocate. And so I would love to just hear a little bit about how you tie in music to your community work, or how you would like to tie in music to community work.
Yeah, two very I feel like at times different things. Sometimes you have like these grand visions of what you would like to do, and it's not wanted, or it's not possible, or you or you figure out what is wanted and needed. So I think that's one of the big pieces that I've really been exploring lately, is like how to line up what you think you want to do and what actually is needed, or wanted. And so that's been a big piece of kind of my work. But I think you know i I think that music enlivens any situation. It brings joy and it connects people's hearts to what's happening. So regardless if it's a fundraiser, or a political event, or a vigil, or a rally, or a protest, or um, any kind of a gathering, music enlivens it. I don't know how else to say, but it takes people out of this place and into this place. So and I think there's also a uh, like an element of unity that happens when everybody's experiencing the same thing. You know,
Mhm.
200 people can be in a crowd and be experiencing different things or thinking different things, but when you play a song or people engaged in singing, it kind of like
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for? Coagulate is the word. It's
Oh,
going to mind, but
I like that.
it's a C word. That it just kind of, it creates some congruity, or
Mhm.
like a thread that carries through everyone. And
Yes.
so, I have definitely felt like I spent a lot of time touring. I spent, over a decade touring really hard and traveling all over the country. And what was missing for me, and why I really stopped, was the feeling that, like, or the knowing that, music has the power to do that. And where am I doing that when I'm out on the road just
Mhm.
playing my songs? And so there was a conscious effort towards, this is a tool, this is a really amazing thing that has power, and how can it be utilized in a more intentional way? And so, I
And
mean,
let me ask, when did you realize that it was powerful? Like, I don't know how long you've been playing music and touring, but was that something you realized after becoming a musician, or is that part of what made you want to become a musician?
it's more part of, it's part of what made me want to become a musician. I
Mm.
mean, uh Indigo Girls, Anita Franco, as like cliche as it feels to put that out there, but they were
Yeah.
really formative artists. And
Hmm.
not only for me and at the age that I was at. I mean, I also grew up with like albums from Woodstock and the 60s, and our vinyl collection. But in my formative years as an artist, and when I was getting started, they were like showing you how music could also be used in really intentional ways. So that got me into it. But then I was in it, and then I got really tired, and really, like, my soul was hurting a bit. Like, this is not all there is. And you can play benefits, and that's something I did a lot. And
Mm.
get to support causes and organizations that I felt really passionately about. But it's also different than I don't know, a more intentional use of injecting it into a community process, or
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
So tell us, the world, a little bit about Open Waters, because I know a little bit about it, but I wonder how that came to
Yeah,
be.
so I heard about the Inkinship Open Waters Fellowship a couple years ago through a friend. Sent it to me and said, "Hey, you might be interested in this." And um, Inkinship is a collective um, art theater project, multi-year, that is connecting people to place through different creative and research-based initiatives. And they're very collaborative. And so it's been over the course of 10 years, Jenny Hahn and Corey Tamler have been partners in this project, and they've brought in different community partners, and there was an aspect on farming one time. And I think they came to realize you can't do work in the state of Maine that is place-based without really looking at a relationship with the people whose land this is, and Wabanaki territory. And so this next project, Open Water, has brought together 4 fellows of varying disciplines to create work that connects Native and non-Native people with the Penobscot River watershed, centered in the knowledge of Penobscot Native guides. And so we actually did, as part of our research project, we're out in canoes on the water with Penobscot guides and basket making, and doing plant identification, plant walks. And it's been a deep dive and a slow process into how to decolonize community work, what's needed, what's wanted, how to listen, how to be an ally, a supporter, and a participant in ways that are have integrity.
Yes, which
so,
kind of ties into what you said earlier about creating a project or a community program that is sometimes not wanted or not needed. And I feel like, especially in the music therapy community or anything in the arts, we run into that a lot. Like, I have a great idea, like we should do this thing. And instead of kind of figuring out first what is needed in the community, we just jump in and offer something, and like to people that we might not even be a part of. So it's fascinating to hear you say that that's like the focus of that program is.
Yeah. And I think, what it comes down to is relationship building. And that's a slow process. And I think, things have slowed down over the past couple of years, just in part due to COVID, but it's really slowed down my creative process in a way as well. And it's been a huge, a deep personal process as well. Like, what's my role in white supremacy, and who am I on this land and making my home here, and what does it mean to be in connection? So and not only with people, but with this place, with this ecosystem around us, with these entities. So it's been I'm really grateful that I've been able to be a part of it, and we're continuing, or we're going to have some kind of culminating event probably at the end of this summer, which was supposed to happen last summer, but
cool.
So
is it other musicians, or are you the musician in the group and there's other art forms?
No. And to be honest, there hasn't been a ton of music making. That's something that we're actually diving into next week and doing some workshops around. But music has been part of it, but there's also someone who's primarily a dancer, visual artist, illustrator, anthropologist.
Cool.
So native and non-native, and a lot of theater background as well. So it's cool to also just collaborate cross disciplines, which is something I've not done so much of.
Yeah, it can be pretty powerful also. Do you think all musicians and artists have a responsibility to be sort of stewards of both their community and the art form itself? Or is there a place for just singing songs? And
That's a good question. I think just humans do in general. We need to care for each other in our communities, like, period. So I believe that. And it's a good question. I think about that. My personal answer was that was not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that art for art's sake, there is value there. Um, so I don't know how to answer that.
Mm,
I Part of me feels like we just need people to be creative, and there is merit in creation. And I do believe every artist needs to be responsible for, um, in some way, at least understanding the context. And, more and more, and especially in this last year, we've been called to to understand,
mhm,
especially if you're, if you're a white soul musician, what does that mean?
mhm,
For me in my own practice, like what's left of my music that I create if I take away, or if I only played the tradition that is culturally like mine, from my
yeah.
heritage. So so yeah,
Mhm.
that's a complex
It is. I know it's a little much,
it's a
but
great question. I think it's one
yeah,
that everybody who has some kind of a creative discipline should be asking.
yeah.
And I'm sure, the answers vary widely, but I do think that we all have some kind of responsibility, at least to understand
Mhm.
the context in which we're creating, and
Yeah.
the traditions in which we're creating.
And I've seen you do it in both ways. I've seen you perform as a musician with sort of the dynamic of performer and audience, and you're still offering, shared resources and sort of inspiring people to be more community minded.
Mhm.
But then you also do music programs where you're helping other people be creative and make music. And I know you mentioned you were planning, I don't know if it got hurt because of COVID, but planning a group for mothers.
Yeah, so I spent the last year, it began pre-COVID. I was working with In Her Presence, which is an organization here in Portland that's supporting immigrant women and doing awesome, awesome work. Support their work; they're great.
Cool.
And that work was in partnership with the Portland Public Library, and really trying to make the link between music and early literacy skills, but also
Cool.
just using it as a means to bond. And so this has been kind of a track that I've been following, that I feel really passionate about. I also love reading, and so I've been and I've been trying to link those two things, because they are, I mean, this as a music therapist, language and music is the building blocks to how we
Hmm.
process language later on in life. And so I have a deep interest in that. But I had also started working with the Intercultural Community Center in Westbrook, Maine, and trying to create programming for immigrant mothers with young children, like under 5 years old. And it was just hard. It was hard, mostly because of the technical barriers.
Hmm.
But the work continues, and, and we'll figure it out as we go. But I'm actually
Yeah.
starting this week working with 317 Maine with a lullaby project, and some other songwriters. Sorcha Crib and Merrill
Yeah.
brought this project to Maine, and we're working with teen mothers, helping them write lullabies for their babies, which is
Awesome.
awesome.
That's
Awesome.
super fun.
Yeah, so
Very
I feel
cool.
really grateful, and I love helping other people author their own work, their own songs.
Awesome. Cool. And you have an album out that came out last year? Or was it,
Mm,
oh my gosh, 2 years ago?
right before COVID hit,
Ah,
but I feel lucky I got it out before
yeah.
beforehand. Yeah, that's Green Things to Grow, which features the amazing Kate Beaver on vibes. Yeah, I hope we get to play some more of that music together
We will.
soon.
Absolutely.